Hello, my name is Loveless, and I'm a student at Liberty University Online, and this is my presentation about interpersonal communication. So today I'm going to talk about a number of things to include the definition of interpersonal communication, my overarching goal that I want to accomplish from this presentation, the role of enlarging the conversation, my background, my behavioral blend, and potential barriers, noise pollution and solutions, and my final plan of action. So to start, what is interpersonal communication? Interpersonal communication is the kind of communication that happens when people involved talk and listen in ways that maximize the presence of the personal. So the personal consists of 5 qualities: uniqueness, immeasurability, responsiveness, reflectiveness, and addressability. So these are things that are characteristic of a deeper relationship. You're just taking a little more time to invest in the person that you're talking with. It's a unique topic. It's not it's not your everyday conversation, just saying hello. You're being responsive. You're interacting with the person that you're talking with and looking into their meta messages, which we'll talk about a little bit later, in terms of their body language and how they're responding. And then reflectiveness and addressability, just looking into what the person is saying and, again, being able to respond back. So this includes the degree that communicators are able to give out and take in appropriate features of the personal, namely being the result being the contact between them will be interpersonal. And from the Educational Sciences Journal, interpersonal competence also involves the ability to engage effectively in complex interpersonal interaction and to use and understand people effectively. So my overarching goal. This class made me challenge myself and think about a master goal that I wanted to get out of the class. And ultimately, I decided I just want to be a better listener. When going through all the materials that the class had us to read, I really discovered I thought I was a better listener than I actually am. So not only will this help me as an officer in the Air Force and a supervisor at my job, but also in my most personal and familial relationships, and really all of my relationships in general. So this is where enlarging the conversation comes in. The main definition of enlarging the conversation is identifying needs and identifying resources and developing a plan to put them into action. So as John Stewart says, the author of Bridges Not Walls, there's a direct link between the quality of your conversations and the quality of your life. Enlarging the conversations entails things like deepening the dialogue, raising questions, gaining clarity on issues, and then the actual listening and comprehension that takes place. The perfect listener is an empathetic listener, and that person focuses on focusing on the conversation, encouraging, and reflecting. So a little bit about me. I'm an African American female. I grew up with both my parents, and thankfully both of them were involved. But my dad was working. He was always at work. And my mom, she quit working to actually raise us, so that's a little different than your normal household. I describe myself as an athletic person, pretty shy, but also adventurous at the same time. With me being in the military, I kind of developed that adventurous nature a little bit more. But some of the positives of my background are a stable upbringing. Having both of my parents around really just set the foundation for me growing up. And then also having an example of a lasting marriage. My parents just celebrated their 29th anniversary. So really just having that example of a lasting marriage is something that's really important to me, and I think is a positive as well. And then the negatives, lack of communication. My family was really concerned about having a positive appearance to other people, so there's some things that we really didn't talk about as far as, what is really going on with us, the issues that we have, and really just implementing a lot of self-disclosure. So lack of communication, I think, is something that I kind of grew up with as well, as far as not talking about things. So next slide. So behavioral blends. During this class, we had to take a survey online, which basically determined which of the 4 descriptors actually describe our personality. So the 4 temperaments are described by D, I, S, and C, and they range from active and passive and being task-oriented and people-oriented. So they each have their specific strengths and weaknesses, and I'm going to go on to see what mine are from the survey. So as far as my behavioral blend, there is the first part, which is what is expected of me, and then the second part, which is what I actually am. So this is the expectations that kind of society has of my personality. They say that I'm an S-type, being sensitive, submissive, stable but shy, and a loyal person, and a person that encourages. So some of the positives of this expectation is that I do have a servant's heart, well-liked and easygoing, and I'm a peacemaker. But some negatives are that I'm a little bit insecure because I have to deal with that in social situations. And also, my servant's heart can also be a negative because people with a more sensitive personality, people try to take advantage of them sometimes. So that was something that came up in my survey, and something that's definitely true about me and my experiences. Next slide. So this is me. This is how I describe myself. And these characteristics all came from the Mel's Carbonell book about how to solve the people puzzle. So the traits that came up with the C, I, and S personality are more passive than active, strong people skills, both outgoing and reserved, and interactive and withdrawn. So depending on the situation, I can change, which is definitely true. I'm not the person that has to be in charge, and not pushy or controlling unless someone goes against what I believe. Positive aspects of that are that I'm multifaceted, I'm flexible, so I can adapt to the situation. I'm enthusiastic, and I tend to initiate harmony if it's all possible and trying to keep the peace. But some negatives of my behavioral blend are that people would like for me sometimes to be more decisive and direct. And sometimes my critical personality or attitude can rub others the wrong way. So some potential barriers in my interpersonal communication are negative self-talk, lack of self-disclosure, as I mentioned, in dealing with my family growing up, shyness, and just feeling entitled to speak up, just would rather be the wallflower versus valuing my opinion is important, and then hearing what I want to hear, and the overuse of people skills instead of being firm. So here are some solutions to the potential barriers. First thing I need to do is recognize my strengths and weaknesses and embrace them both. In reading the DISC personality traits, there were some that automatically have a positive stigma and some that automatically have a negative stigma. But I have to embrace, both parts, all things about my personality, and realize that's how I'm uniquely made. The next part is I need to remember that self-disclosure is the base of healthy relationships. Although my tendency would be to not say anything, in order for me to have healthy relationships in the future, I really need to focus on that and view my perspective as an important contribution. And then lastly, recognize there's a time and a season for everything. There's a time to speak and there's a time to listen. And sometimes there is a time to speak. So versus, again, defaulting to my normal tendency just to be quiet, there's a time and a season for everything. So noise pollution. Internally, noise pollution can come from my beliefs, negative self-talk, my experiences, and then fatigue. That kind of deals with the speed of the listener versus the speed of the speaker. There's a significant gap in between those things, and sometimes that could be time to drift off or go on a mental tangent versus focusing on what the speaker is actually trying to say. And also stress is an internal source of noise pollution. As far as external sources, the environment, a person's personal appearance, the language that they're using, and then their actual background noise of the environment. If there's a clock ticking or some other noise in the environment, that can be very distracting as well. So overcoming noise pollution. The first thing I can do is take initiative to listen and focus on the message at hand. Look at the speaker's meta messages, which is more about what is unsaid, the speaker's body language, the person's their tone of voice, the volume of their voice. What are they really trying to say by those other things? And also, when I feel my emotions getting affected, I have to remember that the message is not about me. The speaker is trying to do their best to communicate something to me, so I need to be a little bit more patient in that regard. And then finally, resisting external distractions. That kind of goes without saying. But next slide. So finally, my plan of action. In the Becoming a Better Listener article, they say that the first step in any process of change is becoming aware of what you're doing now. So thankfully, I've been able to do that through the surveys and the books we've been reading in this class, and my mind has definitely opened up the areas that I can improve. Next, keep an open mind. So really, you have to check my biases when I'm listening to someone, analyze what is being said non-verbally, and hold my rebuttal, and evaluate and be critical of content, not the speaker's delivery. Last but not least, I have to keep working. This is definitely a journey of listening, and becoming better is something I have to put into practice every day. And partnering with God to be becoming a better listener. This is something I can include in my prayer time, and really just ask God for more ways to help me to become a better listener. And lastly, I gotta hear everything that's been said, receive everything that's been said, and put it into practice. James 1:22 says, "Do not merely listen to the word and so deceive yourselves, do what it says." So even though I have all this good information, I still need to go and make the next step of application and putting it into practice. And finally, that's my bibliography, and thanks for listening.